Hey everybody, um, my name's Theus, Complex Mind, Simple Man, and let Michael introduce himself. But we are here on Tracy's program for the Black Male Forum. Thank you for everybody who's tuning in live and everyone who comes in and sees this a little later. Michael, floor is yours, sir. You can't hear me?
Hello?
All right, we got you. I hear you good. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me? If I can't hear you.
All right. So
I'm Michael Dublin. I'm a U.S. Senate candidate in the state of North Carolina for the North Carolina Green Party, and I'm so grateful and honored to be here so we can talk about the status of the black male voter currently in around the country.
all right. So we may have a little bit of technical.
No, I can't hear you, Tracy.
We may have some technical issues we're working through, folks, everybody. So hopefully you can hear both of us. But today, like I said, we're here to kind of engage on a few different topics that Tracy has lined up for us. And Tracy, if you would, could you share the graphic that is in there? All right, so as you can see on your screen, this is State of the Black Male Voter, our vote, our voice, our future. So we're gonna hear different perspectives about how we view it. And, you know, I usually put it this way, if you've never heard from me before, all I'm gonna have is I'm going to have my perspective as a Black person. I'm not gonna claim to be the Black perspective, okay? And hopefully some of the things that I share you agree with, and maybe if you don't agree, I would love for you to make comments. Definitely engage with us so we can make this as engaging a conversation as possible. All right. So while we wait for us to get a few technical bugs worked out here, I guess I'll introduce myself a little bit more. So my name is Theus. I have my YouTube channel is Complex Mind Simple Man, and I engage in a good deal of political commentary. But my major focus is basically just the Black community as I see it. So it's important just to kind of lay the framework for what you'll hear from me today. Is I will be speaking from two perspectives, but there's one perspective driving all of it. My politics are not red, they're not blue, they're Black. So I am trying my best to always approach politics from that lens. Like, what will help my community or cause the least harm to my community as we push to improve or change our relative positioning. So I am not colorblind. I am not excluding anyone, but I am intentionally focusing on my community, and I take that into my political life and how I discuss things. Hey, Michael, welcome back, sir. So I've been pontificating.
Okay.
The floor is yours.
So can you fill me in a little bit?
Yeah, I was just honestly just introducing the fact that we're going to be having a political conversation about a few topics that Tracy's laid out for us. We may or may not have another guest come on as well to expand the conversation a little bit. But just because you guys are not in the chat, in the video with us, please enter the chat. Please give us your feedback and help steer the conversation a little bit, if you will. And then I just basically introduce myself as my brand, which is Complex Mind, Simple Man, and my perspective on politics in brief.
Okay, thank you for catching me up. I don't know, it was a technical issue, so I had to log off and log back on. I think we're good to go now. But again, I'm Michael Dublin. I'm in North Carolina. The U.S. Senate candidate for the NC Green Party, co-chair for the Black Caucus of the North Carolina Green Party, a member of Black Workers for Justice in North Carolina. Also, recently retired school teacher. So, being involved with politics has been, part of my life since I was young. My grandma got us involved with the NAACP at an early age. I've always been a voice on the street. So I've been protesting a long time for social justice issues, ecological justice issues. As we know, they sometimes go together because, um, dumping of PCPs and chemicals and especially in marginalized community areas like Black areas and Black-owned land is something that's been going on for a long time. So sometimes people don't understand that it's all connected and politics. And I think when we talk about the state of the Black male voters, I think that the tactic I'm gonna look at tonight is to look at Black male voters, but also kind of contrast the young Black voters and the older Black voters. I think there's a difference in the way that the generational gap on how they view things also affects how the Black male voters, vote, because we on a monolith. There's many different ideas, and so I think when we look at the dynamics of it, it would behoove us to also look at the impact of the generations, and even like rural versus urban. So there's a lot of different dynamics to dive into, and I think they're all very relevant in this discussion.
No, I certainly agree with you on all points. Where we may disagree at certain aspects of like tactical, approaches, but no, I'm with you, and I like the fact that you introduced that, the fact that this is layered. So no matter how many ways like I try to come at this very, very deep and broad subject, it's not going to scratch the surface of all the different angles that this could be, right? Like you said, the generational divides, there's that. It's just natural that the younger group is generally going to be a lot more impatient. They're usually the ones with the most energy, just historically speaking. And then the older voters, we're usually more, I'm going to say worn down, but it's not the right expression. It's just we start to come at things with different nuances based on how our lives have, played out in many respects. And I don't know, what do you think? Because I think I don't know how we would bridge this gap, but I think it's critical that wherever we sit on, boomer, Gen X, millennial, whatever they have, that Zoomer and Alpha, we're all going to have to play in this space. And I think what keeps us so fragmented is that we can't or have not yet found like a strong enough focus that we're all chasing, because then it keeps us from fighting each other as much. That's just my kind of, because during this, we all like to look backwards at the 60s. It's like the favorite point of reference that people like to look back to. And unfortunately, they look back at it with very rose-colored, minimalistic glasses, and they act like everybody was working together. No, but they had a shared ultimate objective, so you could all be rowing in the same direction, even though you're not in the same boat. At least that's how I would kind of bring that forward. Your thoughts?
I agree, and I think that the point you just said about looking back at the civil rights movement through rose-colored glasses, I think that when the younger people today they hear that stuff, but then they don't understand not the amount of work, but the amount of hardships it was, and no, I think they understand when you look at like the freedom rides and all that. You show them videos of the attack dogs and the police attacking with clubs. I think they understand that because police violence is still prevalent today. Um, but what it took to make it happen, I don't know if they understand that. And in order, I think in order to bridge the gap, now I'm speaking generations right now, um, is to listen to each other. I know that sounds simple, but the older heads, my generation, and the older ones, um, I don't think we do a great job of listening to the younger ones. So we're like, yeah, remember Dr. King and back in the '60s, and this was happening. We went through this and went through that. But you got to remember, some of these younger voters, they weren't born until, 2005. So to talk about what happened in 1964, it just may not land as it does to someone who's older. And I think that the older generation has to listen and say, the things you guys are going through now is really hard for you guys, is really relevant, instead of saying, well, y'all got it easy. Well, we had to go through to get y'all here, um, without actually listening to them. I think that can be a problem that we need to overcome. And that's why, I think that I was blessed to teach. I know it's funny now because when I was teaching, I was like, man, this is woo, this is this is hard. But the blessing them, there was some blessing in it, is that I got to be around young people a lot and learn to listen. And I don't want to say I was when you're teaching middle school, you get to see the future right in front of your eyes. So the people that I taught 17 years ago, um, now they're voting age, and they're getting involved politically. And being that I was able to listen to them, I know more about what's important to them. And I think that's a way of bridging the gap. Is, first of all, you have to listen, and be willing to listen. And I noticed that a lot of our politicians who are in office now, some of the older ones who may have went through those struggles in the civil rights and those times like that, but they don't really do a great job of listening to the younger people today. They just really want to just say, well, we went through this. You should be happy about that. We sacrificed for you, but then they don't want to listen to the youth about what's important to them now.
No, I definitely fully agree with that. I think that there's a community breakdown, and there's a lot of things we could point at that'll feed into it. But if we want to heal some of that to actually build what I view more of a unified and concentrated front, it starts with listening, because the young people, there is genius, there is creativity, there is perspective in the young people that unfortunately sometimes gets ignored or downplayed, is probably the better way to put it, because they're young. And it's like, no, this is the world they're going to have to inherit. And the energy of the 20 something and 30 something today is the exact same energy of the 20 something, 30 somethings back then. So we have to feed off of each other. I'm not a military man. I was raised by a military man, but a lot of my thinking is formed by that world. And I truly believe where each generation has a role to play, if we will. So the young people, like the students and the young adults, those are usually the ones that are going to be on the front line. Because when I call them adversaries, when your adversaries come at you, they're going to go after your youth, because thus that's what they deem to be some form of a threat. So if you want to navigate that space, then our youth, which will be our leading edge, we owe them to be the ones who are laying strategy, who are discussing tactics, who are giving perspective, who are urging caution when it's necessary, or giving some perspective on a different way to come at the problem when it's relevant then too. But in all cases, remembering that we owe to them a better world than what has been laid out for them. But that's my my dogma, how I come at it. But hey, you know what? I am notorious for going off on tangents, Michael. So let's go ahead and just, I guess, hop on her first topic, if that's cool with you.
Yeah, sure.
All right. So the first line of discussion is the current state of Black male voter participation.
I would say, and I'm looking at an article by Michael Bland in Fayetteville, who said young Black men aren't politically checked out; they're just been ignored. And he says Black men are not politically absent; they are politically misread. And I would agree with that because when you ask people, and according to this article, they talk to Black men between the ages of 18 and 45, and 92% of them said voting is important. 92%. So
They said it is important.
92% said it is important.
Okay.
So when if someone says that, to me, they say to me, well, the Black man voting is not important to them, I would say no, that's not true. And I'll say from my own experiences, recently, traveling around North Carolina, I ask people, and I do focus a lot on Black males when I'm places. Are you registered to vote? Because we have a link on my website where people can go click on the link and go register to vote. And so I thought that was important enough to put it on my website. And so when I'm approaching people and saying, hey, are you registered to vote? And if someone says, no, I'm not, then I can say, you go to DublinForCongress.com or Dublin for Senate. I have a link where you can register to vote. Also, I have a link where you can check your voter status because I don't know how it is where you are, but in North Carolina, they're doing a great job of scrubbing the roads. And so we have to be vigilant about that as well. But what I'm finding is very seldom do I ask the Black male, are you registered to vote, where they say no. So I think that the current state of the Black male voter is that even though some people think we're not engaged, we are engaged. I'm finding this statistic says so. I'm finding to be true when I talk to people. I talked to a guy who was unhoused, and we had speaking about going on a tangent, we probably had an hour conversation about politics. He was very engaged and very, very knowledgeable. But I think that people will look at him and say, "Oh, you're unhoused and you don't know anything." But I'm finding out. I'm finding a lot of people are very much knowledgeable, and they understand the importance of voting. Now, on the other hand, there are some of the younger ones that I've talked to. I mean, like, let's say 22 and below, 22, 18, that age, who don't say the importance of voting. And I encourage them to say to think about this. I say, well, if voting was not important, why are they trying to take it away from you? And because that tactic they use with the older generation would be, well, our ancestors fought and bled so hard to get the right to vote that, we can't dishonor them by not voting. That may not, resonate with those between the age of 18 and 22. We may have to use a different tactic. But to answer your question, in my opinion, the current state of the Black male voter is they understand the importance of voting. They may be confused, and then there's a lot of them who say, well, I understand the importance of voting, but I don't have anybody to vote for because so many of the younger people are just really fed up with the two-party system and believing that they do not listen to them and their needs.
Yeah, I'm gonna deviate a little bit, but first I'm gonna kind of work within some of what you shared, right? So for those who are not familiar, I really, really, really encourage you to pick up the Deacons for Defense book. Okay, I really encourage you to go back and read that if you're out there. just the first chapter will get you. But the reason I bring that up is because there was, even in the 60s, a perception that Black men were not engaged. And there's a philosophy or a viewpoint which I share that, one, you can't trust your enemy to keep the score, right? You can't trust your opponent to tell you the score. So who's running these polls that are telling you Black men are not engaged? Right? It's the same people who are telling you Black men are not raising their families. Whereas Black men, if you check another poll, and if you just look around you, Black men are heavily engaged in raising and guiding families, right? It may not always appear in the marriage roles, but they're in the households, they're in the churches, they're in the organizations. So your adversary, your opponent, is not incentivized to tell a good story for you. And if you are relying on someone you're competing with for resources to tell your story, just understanding your story is not going to be told very well. And so I brought up Deacons for Defense because during that time, they focused a lot on the core movement, which was the voting rights, freedom rights. And there was a perception that the Black men were not participating in the marches and the protests because they were cowardly or they didn't believe in getting the right to vote. But the reality was, we knew that our very presence at a protest or a rally would incite a greater form of violence and attack, just us being present. So it was a conscious decision by many to not participate, because as a man, how do you stand there as someone attacks the woman next to you? Now, we have a lot of current age issues that get put in front of us that do not speak well to what I just said. But once again, that's curated and is put in front of you for a reason, in my view. But that's what I'm saying. Like, the male Black voter, the male in the community, Black male in the community, I think a big part of the apathy that we feel, encounter, or think, a lot of it comes from no one's really listening to us. Mm-hmm. Okay? We're not really listened to on the job. We're not really listened to in the streets. We're not really listened to. So we learn to kind of shut that down, and no one benefits from your thoughts not being shared, healthy thoughts not being shared. Right. So, yeah, I think that that's super important. Later in the discussion, when we get to one of the later points, I'm going to kind of get into it a little more. But I think that the disengaged voter, whether it be Black male, Black female, the disengaged voter is like that because it's not just the duopoly, right? The duopoly is the term du jour of the moment. It's really that politics ignores our community when it's time to divvy up the spoils of this nation. And after generation after generation after generation, watching that, reading about that, hearing about that, you have more people turning off. So they may show up to vote, okay? Because there are numbers that show we still show up, okay? We still show up. In fact, let me run through this real quick, and I hope I don't bore anybody too much. But like, follow what I'm about to say. The total Black population is about 13%, right? I mean, that's it's like 13.5, something like that. So they say. All right, so that's about 45.5 million people, man, woman, and child, okay? Black community. A little over 60% of Black registered voters participated in the 2024 election, okay? So this is the Kamala Harris election. So a little over 60% of those who could vote, so that's not that 45.5, okay? But of those who could vote, over 60% participated. You won't find that in many other communities that are out there. That's a very high participation rate. I think the American rate generally is somewhere in the 30s or 40s. It's really kind of sad, like nationally, how we participate. Black eligible voters are claimed to be about 35 million. 60% of that would be 21 million. So ride with me. The combined percentage of black voters, so of those who did vote that are black that voted, 92% of us voted for Kamala Harris. Now, I'm not here to advocate for Kamala Harris. I'm definitely not here to advocate for the Democratic Party. But I am here to advocate on behalf of black people and how we get mislabeled and blamed for things that are simply not our fault when it comes to the political story. All right. Now, split that 50-50 roughly, right? Male, female. That brings us down to about 10 million black male voters. 87% of them voted for Kamala Harris in the last election. That's about 0.37% of voters. Less than 0.5%. And yet, what did we see coming out of the election season? Black men voted for Trump. Right? Black men didn't show up for Kamala Harris. No, we showed up. We're less than 0.5% of everything else that's happening. Don't blame us. But here's what you can do. Whether you're a Green Party, Democratic Party, Republican Party, Libertarian Party, wherever you are, here's what you can do. Engage with us. Talk to us. Find out what it is that we actually do care about, which we're going to hit on in a couple more of these points that Tracy lined up for us, because that's the missing piece. We don't decide elections, but we do swing them. So that's my rant. I'm sorry, but like that's when I look at what is the state of the black male voter, it is overlooked, not paid attention to, and blamed for things that ain't our fault.
Yeah, I agree with that. When they say that I didn't vote for Kamala Harris, they're telling the truth though, but I didn't vote for Trump either. But that's a valid point, and I'll say this on a tangent. I just got off the phone before I came on with Chester Harris, Mr. Chester Todd, who ran for U.S. representatives in U.S. House of Representatives in Wisconsin, and he referenced the book Deacons for Defense. So I just heard that. I heard this twice today. So I just want to point that out for sure. But there is a lot of misleading information about black people in this country, and it's been that way forever. That's why on many podcasts when I go on and we talk about America 250, I say, well, it wasn't the same for us. It wasn't for us. So we can talk about that one, I guess, at a later time, because a whole lot of information about who's engaged, who are fathers, our communities being more violent than other communities. I mean, there's just so much misinformation that we can get into, and it bleeds into the voting, and because it bleeds into everything. It's in the fabric of this country. Misinformation about black people, about black males, and it just feeds upon itself over and over again. It's like an algorithm that just keeps feeding the same thing over and over and over. So you hear people now saying the same thing that they were saying in the 1960s, 1970s. It's like, well, do you even check the facts, or are you just going by the same regurgitated ideas over and over and over? And it ties into how people feel about black male voters' participation. But I do want to, as you said, go to the next point, which is what matters most to black men and their families. In this study I was referencing earlier, the younger 18 to 45, the majority they talked about what was important to their family. So they even though we look at them sometimes, not me, but some other people, and say, okay, they dress this way, they walk this way, they're this and they're that, they talk this way, but they're young men who are concerned about the needs of their families. 100%, not 100%, but more than what we're given credit for. And so, I'm a parent and a grandparent. I got younger black sons, and I know that they're family men. And when it comes time to thinking about how to vote, though, they still have this conflict about who they really want to vote for. They don't want to um, be like some of the older generation who just kind of just basically some of the older people in my family who say, well, we're just Democrats, that's the way we're going to vote. They don't look at it that way, but they are politically engaged, and what's important to them is what's important to everyone else. Um, you know, being able to support their families, being able to have a livable wage. They want to take care of their children, put food on the table, pay their bills. I mean, these are the things, the price of gas. These are the things that's important to black men and their families. And so that kind of question, when you think about it, is really the same as everybody in America. What's important is taking care of your family, those kind of things. And in that regard, I don't think we're different than other groups.
So, yeah, but here's where I would kind of bend it just a touch. Can you hear me?
Okay.
I don't have audio.
Are you muted?
Let's see. How about now? Can you hear me? Okay, I'm gonna drop.
I can't hear you, but I don't know if other people can hear you.
Oh, you can hear me now? Yeah, I changed my microphone. I think when it kicked me out, it messed up my mic. So if y'all can hear me out there, somebody make a comment. So, or Tracy, if you could let me know if you can hear me, right? But as long as you can hear me, Michael, are you hear me? All right, cool. So I lost a little bit of what Michael was speaking on because of my technical issues. And it looks like it may be hitting him right now. So he'll bounce back here in just a second. So I would just add to some of the things that he was sharing, but I personally add the overlay of being black, right, in America. So while many of the things that we deal with as Americans are shared, there is a particular flavor I see, or I believe, as it relates to being black, navigating those spaces. So what I'm going to hit on is I'm going to give you my top 5 when we look at issues that matter. The question was issues that matter most to black men and their families. So I'm a black man. I have 3 wonderful children, 1 adult, 1 teen about to be grown, and 1 preteen about to be a teen, right? So I got the spectrum going on. I've been married for almost 20 years. Got divorced when I was in college, so I even have an ex-wife, right? So I've had a pretty fulsome experience in being a black man with a family. Okay, now when I say what are my top 5 are business ownership, and by that I mean funding, growth, and opportunity, criminal justice and law enforcement reform or change, housing availability and the appreciation discrimination that happens with our properties, even to this day, interpersonal relationships. So that's dating, that's being married, that's building a family and a foundation together, whether that's married or not, but you're building a family, right? And political and social leverage. So I'm going to try to hit each of those really quick. And then Michael and those who are viewing, if you have any pushback, changes, anything, just let me know. I love this type of discussion, just so you guys know. So what do I mean by business ownership, funding, growth, and opportunity? The reason why that's my number 1 is because in the American economy, it's tough. It's been tough. and it's going to continue to be tough, and it's going to get harder. And then, because in my view, the Black community occupies one of the lowest rungs of the American caste system, we disproportionately inhabit the most vulnerable sectors of our economy. We disproportionately inhabit labor. We disproportionately inhabit poverty. We disproportionately inhabit the need for some form of government intervention or support. And then we also disproportionately suffer an imbalance of government focus and harassment, right? So to me, one of the best ways to mitigate much of that is economic. Our unemployment historically is twice that of our white counterparts. No matter how good the economy is or how bad it is, right? We're double. Now, there are some who say that that's just racism. Racism does play a part because race is part of America. But I would counter that a bigger part of it is we do not have an economic base that we can rely on, that we control, operate, and can grow. Now, it made my number one because I want to see more of us have businesses, those who are business minded to have it, right? Everybody ain't meant to be a business owner. But we have more businesses, we can employ more of our people so that more of our people have employment that's not somehow reliant on someone finding favor in you or making an exception for you to be able to care for your family. So we want to address unemployment and poverty. One of the best ways to do it is we have to build an economic base. And it made my number one also because that also means we have to break down or find a way to break down these barriers that are politically hampering us as well. There's a reason why if you are a Black person who wants to start a business, it's very easy to start a church, but it's very hard to start another business. Okay. They have decided for us which segments they're willing to lend to us in, and in other segments, it's very hard to get capitalized so that you can start those businesses outside of a shoestring budget. So we need better access to funding opportunities, and we need the barriers broken down. That's that one. Michael, got any thoughts on that before I move to my second one?
No, go ahead.
All right. So the next one I put on here for me is criminal justice and law enforcement, right? So I don't mean for this to sound like a wag the finger thing, because it's not, okay? But we operate in a very corrupt and twisted criminal justice system. It's very criminal, not a whole lot of justice. And the shade, or as I say, the hue you are, is oftentimes more determinative of the justice you'll receive than who you are. Now, how do we impact that? We can try to abandon and avoid this twisted system, which many of us have decided to do over time. But that means there's less representation and protection for us in that system. Okay. So I would say part of being registered to vote is actually showing up for jury duty, is actually helping to identify among our young people. I love that you said you're a middle school teacher, because middle school is my passion. I love middle school kids, right? Identifying at that age, that 12 to 14 age group, where some of their budding talents are. And if you have a child who's very analytical and they're interested in things like law, or they're very, or even if they don't show that they're interested in law per se, because they don't always have the vocabulary for that, but you can see they're the ones who always have an argument for anything you bring up. Right? Mm-hmm. They're ready to dissect and counterpose and all of that. Well, those are the talents we can identify. And as a community, pie in the sky thinking, guys, that's who I am. And as a community, we identify that child and we help groom that child in their interest. We make sure that that child is in debate. We make sure that child is in science and chess club and things like, on top of whatever else that child might be interested in. But you push them down the line of something that can help them and help their community as we go forward. So that's that little piece. Most African freedmen support abolishing the police department because most police officers are part of the white supremacy culture. What policies do you propose to end white supremacy and racist policing in America? Yeah, so I'll go ahead up on this one, man. So not dealing too much with the vernacular, I guess you could say, but I do think that policing, especially American policing, there's no reforming it. It started bad and has gotten worse. It operates a lot like a gang. They operate outside of the law that they're supposed to be enforcing. And that's just my take. They've been historically an adversary towards us as far as an oppressive force and all that. But now, hear me, because this isn't me talking out of both sides. This is me saying this on. There's layers to this. You still need law enforcement because everybody in society is not going to play fair with everybody else. What we have is not the solution. So I would advocate for reducing your police force significantly, right? Like we shouldn't have county police, township police, city police, state police. Like you got in one area, you can have 5 or 6 different jurisdiction of militarized police forces. Why? That's just throwing money around. Okay. So I would advocate more for it would be a state level police force. And I would say that you would shrink down the massive size of the policing force we have and specialize them. Because in my experience and from what I've observed, and anybody can push back at me, but they don't stop crime by and large. They respond to a crime that may have occurred. So if that's the case, you need a few of them still around because sometimes they do stop crime. Sometimes they do see something. Sometimes they serve as a visual deterrent. But that's not enough to justify having so many of them. Specialize them. You're going to be in SWAT, you're in SWAT. You're going to be in social services, you're in social services. If you need to respond to a domestic disturbance or a mental health crisis, you send a trained officer and a trained officer, and they go out there and they assess and they handle the situation as best possible. If you notice, when the fire department shows up because there's a crisis, nobody ends up dead. So the policing, I think, is wrong. I think it needs to be completely changed. I don't think it can be reformed. I think it needs to actually be stripped down and rebuilt. I know that's not going to be what a lot of people who are on the abolish train would agree with, but I'm open to hearing different things. So yeah, I think I answered it. Did I answer it? Michael, you got some feedback?
I think you did. And I would jump in on this. Yeah, defunding the police, and a lot of people don't like the language. But what I'm finding is that a lot of people don't like the language when you're saying something because they've been conditioned to think a certain thing. And then there's so many things in this country, you know, when we talk about, if you say white privilege, there's some people that get like, oh, what do you mean? You said my life was easy. No, let me explain what that means and how that affects everyone, you know, and policing, it's like you said, it started out wrong. We know this slave patrols, and this idea of being able to check any black person at any time. It goes back to slavery days. You know, show me your papers. The master send you, give you your papers, and that's why when I see things happen in Georgia and other places like that, when black people get killed, I'm like, well, it's the same system, um, and so I know that policing means, you know, keep the natives in check, and you know, this militarized police force does not, like you said, doesn't prevent crime. It's just to show power and to keep others in check. I agree with that, and um, I definitely support defunding the police and having other experts that come in, people that can deal with social issues and communities without sending in someone with gun blazing and you know, de-escalate situations. Um, we need more effort in that. We need more community safety committees. We need more of that. So some funds need to go to that. instead of just more militarized police force. So I definitely agree with that. It's on my platform. Um, and on the one hand, that is what I advocate for. On the other hand, I do have to understand what we have right now. And so I had to teach my granddaughter, when the police do stop you, this is what you have to do. This is what you say. Do not consent for a search. You know, we have to at the same time understand what we're under and train our children and grandchildren to survive the police stops, because they're going to get stopped because they're black and they're driving. Just happened to my granddaughter a couple of weeks ago, and so it definitely needs. It definitely is not working. I'm for defunding and putting in resources somewhere else to help our community.
Yeah. So if we could just stay on this for just a second more, just to flesh it out a little more, right? So we generally agree, right, as far as the policing situation. What I would like to explore is what is the remedy and how do you get there? And I have some thoughts, but I'm going to frame it just a touch here. So we live in the country that we live in, and we live in the timeline that we live in. So we live in my view, so these are my words, not Michael's. We live in a very racially motivated nation. We live in a time where might makes right is trying to be pushed over logic and reason and justice, and it's never been fair, but you know what I mean. But they're trying to shift to that. And that, in my view, as a study of history, only portends bad things for my community. Because might makes right is how you end up with strange fruit. And if people out there don't know what strange fruit is, that is black bodies hanging from trees. And we've seen that as a resurgence here as of late. And what have you heard from law enforcement's response? Oh, it's something else. It wasn't what you think it might be. Even if behind closed doors, they know what's happening. They don't want to tell us because they don't want to get everybody in an uproar or whatever they want to do. But that's a reflection of the fact that we don't get justice out of the system. So when people say defund the police, I agree. But where I challenge is, what do you replace it with? Because here's a very important thing. If you study or look back at the Deacons for the Defense, because I just love them as a wonderful example, but you can go back to the Black Panther Party and how they organized political community policing. The fact is, even though we're trying to do right, even though we start to work within our community and we actually start to talk to each other, right? Look a man in his eyes, acknowledge his existence, talk to the kids, talk to the women with respect. Make sure that women know that if there's a black man present, then that black woman's physical safety is assured, right? Getting back to the bare roots of what we should have as a community. Even in so doing, the fact that we do right will incite the aggressor. They will come for us when we do what we're supposed to do, just as they come for us when we don't do what we're supposed to do. So I say all of that because I want to dispel what I believe is a bit of a myth, that if we just change what we're doing, everything lines up. It doesn't. The people who hate you for existing will continue to hate you for existing. The people who don't want you, the people for whom your success means less success for themselves, are going to come for you. So is current policing the right answer? No. It's a glorified slave patrol. It protects property. It does not protect people. It's a criminal justice system that we have right. No, it does the same thing. It protects wealth and access. It doesn't protect or reasonably judge those who are subject to its force. But if we one day scrape the system and we say we're going to defund and get rid of all of these things, as Tupac, for those who are Tupac fans, one of the things he pointed out, which is still true today as it was then and it was before him, we got killers in our neighborhoods. We got what I call human parasites amongst us. It's in every group. Every racial group got them. Every community has them. How do you deal with them when we have no policing?
Right.
And then if
Well,
you stand up a new police force, how do you keep them from becoming what we just got rid of?
sure. Those are great questions, and I think the defund is different than abolish. So, um, and I mean, I agree. I hear you. I mean, I can go back before the Panthers when you got Robert F. Williams in North Carolina and Monroe, who armed the community for self protection, and had to end up getting trumped up charges and had to end up moving to Cuba. Um, so, and what did they want? They wanted equal access to the pool since they paid taxes, and the Klan always wanted to kill them and run them off, and the police didn't do anything until they showed up and they had their guns to protect themselves. Then the police showed up and wanted to say that the black people in the community were wrong. I mean that we can cover but that might take a different show. That
Yeah, it
might take a
would.
different show because when we talk about that, about like I said, it's in the algorithm. Um, even though I'm with the Green Party, but I believe in us having our Second Amendment rights. I mean, I'm a Malcolm follower, and I get it. So what would replace it? I'm not sure, but I am concerned that maybe because we got three more topics to do. That this is something we may have to do on a different show to dive deeper into
Oh,
that.
fair,
Because
fair. I'm sorry.
the next topic is barriers to voting and civic engagement. And it does go to this carceral police state and the prison industrial complex that we have when the Constitution says everyone has the right to vote. Well, I didn't say that, but I'm paraphrasing, except for those who have committed crimes. And so we know that systematically um, more of our people, black people, got arrested. Um, and the right to vote was taken from them. So that was a way of stripping people's right to vote. And I don't know if we want to cover the historical things like black codes and all that kind of stuff. Um, I think maybe she means more recently barriers to voting. Again, the people who get out of prison, a lot of, and disproportionately black males who do not have the right to vote at all because of their record. Um, and um, barriers to civic engagement. Um, I'm not sure about that. I mean, I'm sure that when we look at people working 2 and 3 jobs just to survive and pay their bills, they may not want to be engaged civically. Um, but I think that may be a barrier. Um, but what do you want to say about that, These?
Yeah. So, um, I first, when it comes to barriers to voting, um, I have okay, Michael. You probably haven't seen much of me before now. So, during a political season, I'm quite political. Um, During the off season, I shift towards civic or community based. So my balance is starting to actually shift again, and I'm starting to reduce my focus on politics simply because, in my view, the game is so far gone, right? So the biggest barrier I see politically is how we play the game. Uh, there are people, and you alluded to it earlier, and I definitely have run into it more than I like, who will say to you, voting doesn't matter. We don't get anything from voting, blah, 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 blah. And I don't dismiss that, but I try to convey, if they're willing to hear me, that the problem isn't voting. The problem is how we vote. It's not the game. Because first of all, if you buy into my premise, politics is how resources are divided in a society. Okay. So the game afoot is those who are already at the table who control the politics. It's in their best interest to keep new people from getting to the table.
So they set up as many obstacles and roadblocks as possible to reduce you getting to the table to have a voice on how these resources get allocated. And so, with us being one of those groups that they fight so hard to keep away from the table, and when they do let us in, they let us in drips and drabs, little pieces, so that they can control us either by buying us off or threatening us or just drowning us out by sheer numbers. But that's politics. And what I would say is we have been playing politics wrong. I consider myself a bit of a Malcolm follower. My number one is actually Kwame Ture, but it's like, if you're going to engage with a purpose. If you're going to get educated to a purpose. If you're going to get money with a purpose. If you're going to get married, you get married with a purpose. Whatever you do it with a purpose. So don't just show up to vote. Show up with a purpose. And for that, I would say, when I say we play the game wrong, is we should operate in voting blocks. There should be a Black voting block for the Southeast, a Black voting block for the Northeast, right? Probably 5, 6, 7, 8 of blocks, because the needs of our communities in each of these areas is different. Now, we have a lot of overlap that might help how we move on the national level, but we should be much more coordinated in how we move at things. We should already have, by the time we're in the last 9 to 12 months of an election, we should have a slate of people that we know as a group, this is who we have our eye on. And this is who we're going to vote for if they stay in line. We should also do like a lot of the conservative think tanks do. They grow their politicians. This is one of the things I mentioned about with middle school, identifying their strengths and whatever. Mm-hmm. You identify that talent. You make sure that that child has everything they need. Middle school, high school, they got everything they need. When they graduate and go off to college, you make sure the community is putting money in their pocket so that they don't ever have to worry about going out and getting into the hustle culture or something like that as they're trying to get their education. We can do that as a community. $5 a head out of a typical church would be more than enough to take care of multiple children while they're at college for the month. So I'm saying we change how we do it. That would be how we overcome that particular perceived barrier politically. Also, on the civic engagement front, because I try to work in this space, I think the biggest barrier for our civic engagement is we don't know where to go. Right? We can't do it all online. Everything we do online is monitored. Everything we say, everything we do, it's stored somewhere. It will be brought up and put in front of you the moment you want to do something, right? So where do we go? In the 50s, which is really the 40s and the 50s are really the brainchild of what we all know of the 60s. Where did we go? We were in mosques, we were in churches, right? That's where we were. Now, where do we congregate? Especially as Black people like myself who no longer affiliate with the church. Well, it's hard for me to go to the church to congregate because there's so many rules and you got to check this box and check that box to be in my space. Well, then we need to have another place as well. We need to meet in the churches. We need to meet at the rec centers. We need to meet at our friend's basement or garage. But we need to organize. And that's what I think is our biggest barrier when it comes to the civic side of it.
Yeah, thank you for that. I was a little bit distracted. My daughter and grandkids came in, but
no, you're great.
Plus, I spilled some water. Yeah, thank you for that response. That is it's a conundrum because, as you said, many of us have left the church, and then the rules, like you said, is also a barrier. So where do we meet? And I see the struggle. Not just, I see it in the civic engagement. As I said, I'm a member of Black Workers for Justice too. union of workers, have their own building. They have events. That's where I was Juneteenth. So that is a way of getting people engaged. There were a lot of young people there um, that I have an opportunity to talk to. I'm starting to get invitations to youth organizations and groups around North Carolina to go and talk to them about um, civic engagement in politics. And it's interesting that they're reaching out to me now because I am running for Senate. And some of them are sharing that, hey, we're glad that we have somebody running for Senate who will listen to us, who knows our experiences. Um, and so that's a way of civic engagement. And I'm actually um, quite pleased to be able to do that because, like, we talk about it. They are our future. And so it's to pass that on to them. But I do want to say what I said before. Me as an older head, I still have to listen, and I want to listen because I want to know what's important to them. And I think that once we do that, then the engagement will increase. Um, we don't have the church and the mosque to kind of coalesce around. So we do need to find ways to get that done. So I agree with you on that. That's something that we need to work towards. Do I have the answer for that right now? I don't. Um, but I'm willing to listen and go to the young people where they're at, the younger ones, and to get them engaged. They will engage differently than the older ones, um, but I'm looking forward to that challenge, and I'm working on it. And yeah, so maybe that will lead us to the next point, which is strategies to increase voter education. Um, and that might have been a good segue, um, because honestly, guys, I'm running for Senate to spread the word, to build power that you were saying and talking about, to increase voter education. This is the whole reason for it. And Tracy reminded me, if you guys have any questions, put it in the chat. So I think that's a strategy. I mean, I'm an old guy, and I just started getting on Instagram and social media a few years ago. Um, that's something I had to learn new tricks to engage the younger audience. And I think that's the way we have to think about it, is these new ways of reaching out to people through social media. Because, like this article says right here too, it did say this, that a lot of the younger people are not getting their political education from mainstream media anymore. And so that's a strategy that we have to reach out to increase voter education.
No, yeah, 100%. And I think more and more of us finding a way to have physical space for people to meet and discuss. I think that's very important. Um, it's not cheap and it's not free. And that's where a lot of the barriers are, right? So we as a community, there are ways for us to fix that, but that's a different discussion. That's my personal passion project. But
let me ask you this. Let me ask you this, because I'm hearing this a lot, and people still say that the Black community. I know it's different than, I mean, when I grew up around Raleigh, Southeast Raleigh, South Raleigh is where probably 75 to 80% of the Blacks in Raleigh live. So the Black community was easy to identify. What do we mean when we say modern day Black community?
Wow, now that one is a deep one, right? So it really does. It's like it's a moving target in my view. So first of all, there's Black, the diaspora. So that's first, all this depends on where you decide to tie in. So there's Black of the diaspora. I mean, you acknowledge that your people emanate from Africa, right? So you might be Caribbean Black, you might be South American Black, you might be North American Black, whatever. But for example, and you might have come through the slave trade, you might not have come through the slave trade, but you acknowledge Blackness. That's a diaspora. But then you start to pull yourself in more. And Black as a shorthand, in my view, these are my words, but Black in shorthand is a particular lineage. It's my tribe. These are I descend and I can trace my roots all the way back to where the records stop, right? So my bloodline on both sides comes directly off of slave ships, directly out of the plantations of Alabama. So I view Black as being shorthand for African American, right? A descendant of American chattel slavery. Mm-hmm. But then you have foundational Black Americans are out there. I can't speak for them. I don't agree with all their ways, but I do acknowledge that is a very valid part of our community as well. So it's wherever you kind of tie in, right? And where we get lost a lot of times is we will fight amongst each other on what label we want to use at any given time. But when I say Black community, I am saying you're Black in America and you identify as such, so that you see me as a part of you and I see you as a part of me. Even if your family is only 2 generations African American, or your family is fresh off of right out of like Chad or Nigeria and you've been here in your first generation, but you identify with my Blackness, right? So it's very nebulous. It all depends on where a person ties in. I just happen to be, when I say Black community, I am talking about an ideology more than anything else, because these are the people who will say, you know what, the Black family or the Black person in America is facing very similar obstacles, regardless of what tribe or group you identify with within Blackness. How do we improve our relative positioning in this nation? Right. So I look at white America as being at the top because they have the power. Second to them is the Asians because they have the money. And then below them, you're going to have any version of Latino, and it depends on how close your phenotype is to being white versus being dark, kind of where you're going to fall in there. Then us, then like the indigenous Americans that we know of. I'm not going to debate that with you, bro. I agree with you. But that's where I'm kind of coming from with it, right? Mm-hmm. So when I say Black community, that's what I mean is like, okay, hey, how do we move this thing forward?
Right. And so maybe that ties into the next point, which is building political power. I think that kind of ties into strategies as well. Building political power.
If I may, on the previous question, the strategies to increase voter education turnout, I'm really of two minds. On one hand, yes, Black turnout, that's great, but given where we are in the current evolution of America, I'm not overly concerned. I think our biggest battle right now is we have to rebuild our interpersonal relationships and we have to build an economic base. We lack leverage. So we're engaged in a conversation where no one has to listen to us. So the only value that we oftentimes bring to the political discussion is our vote, but we've not historically had a price for our vote. So it ends up getting watered down. And now that we're no longer the largest minority group, we're actually the third, it carries less weight than it did before. So I'm personally an advocate of the least you can do is go vote. So go vote. But the more important thing is where do you entrench yourself? And I believe that's education and economics.
Great points. Great points. So I see there are questions, but I can't read them. Can you?
The last question? or
I thought there was like questions in the.
oh yeah, there was a comment.
Okay.
So I think I know who this is, but I don't want to assign the wrong name. So one commenter said, "Hey, Theus, the American freedmen are saying lineage and not race, right? So they're saying it's not about your color per se, it's your lineage,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah,
You can actually track the birthright."
yeah.
And
I
then
followed that.
and then the next one was race-based traumatic stress is real. I agree. And as Dr. DeGroy would say, post-traumatic slave syndrome, right? It's the trauma is there, and it hasn't been removed. It just keeps evolving, and the fact that America somehow thinks that it can outrun its debt to us, that's what it's committed to doing. Right? It's going to try to run as long as far as they can. And every time you try to corner this nation on what they're going to do for the descendants of slavery, they always go back to, well, that was a long time ago. And I understand, guys, I do understand. The thing
No.
is, they say it's a long time ago for us, but it's never a long time ago for them when they talk about 1776 and all this other mess. But that is the perk of power. They have the power to not pay attention. So, what are we going to do about it? That is my biggest thing. What are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
So, I think what you do about it is you find out what moves them. There's only two things that moves this nation: violence and money, or economic power. Now, if we're not ready for violence, because there's a lot of costs that come with that, then we better get serious about economics and understand that as we engage in that, they will see us engage in that and they will attack that too. And you have to be ready to build, rebuild, defend, and rebuild again. But that's a discussion that I don't think a lot of people are too keen to have.
Well, yeah. I mean, and we are in agreement on a lot of that. As I said, Kwame Ture, I follow a lot of them, including Malcolm. But he said, "I'm nonviolent with those who are nonviolent with me. But if you're violent with me, then I mean, I get it." But he also did say you're afraid to bleed too. And
Yeah.
and I'm sitting right here. I have my phone on top of a couple of books, and one of the books is From Here to Equality. So it's right here. We talk about yeah, we're going with lineage. And I'm actually working on legislation to do something that some of you may know about it. Gosh, I hate to spill the beans, but it's something with bringing the Freedmen's Bureau back for descendants, lineage base, and so we're working on that. But we'll talk about that some other time. Um, but I think that does tie into building that political power, and like you said, it's economic as well. But the way I look at it is, there's no matter if we focus on I mean, you're right. The discrepancies between what different groups get and what we get is, I mean, it's historic. And then once you start to address it, you're gonna have enemies. I mean, Dr. King said we're coming for that check, and he was dead a few months later.
Yep.
And so we understand the it's not gonna be easy. We understand that, and so I think that to build political power either way or economic power is going to take courage. It's going to take those that understand we're going to have opposition, but it's like we're damned if you do and damned if you don't. Um, I'm going to go down on my shield, so I'm going to go down fighting. So that's just the way it is with me. I don't know if I'm just crazy and was raised that way, or my grandmama. My last name is Dublin because when our ancestor came off the plantation, we didn't keep the slave master's name. So my ancestor heard about the fighting Irish and gave us the name Dublin. So I'm going to be fighting. Um, I'm going to stay in the fight. That's even why I'm running for office, to help build. And again, like you said, we may go at it in different ways, but to build that political power, um, I felt like one particular party had just started taking us for granted.
Absolutely.
And I said, you know what, I can't be taken for granted. And so building that political power, I think one of the first things when I talk to the older people, my age and old, is, at least you can go unaffiliated and not be taken for granted. Now you vote how you want to vote, but don't let them take you for granted. And so I think there's different steps to building political power, and I think it also depends on which generation you're talking to. And I think it takes a multiplicity of efforts on many different fronts, including economic.
Yeah,
And people say to me, politics is not the answer. I say, no, it's not the answer. I think it's part of the answer. The groups I'm working with, I say it's the ballot and the bullet. And when I say the bullet, I mean our collective coming together and working together along with the ballot. The ballot itself is not the answer. We have to go at it on multiple fronts.
Yeah, and I think a super important thing, and this frustrates a lot of people when I have like direct conversations and really get into things, is I am not, unless it's my express purpose, which is rare, I am not trying to convince anyone that I am right. I've already decided how right I am. I'm trying to figure out where I'm wrong. Right. So that's when I'm engaging with people. Like, help me see what I'm not seeing so I can evolve and become stronger in what it is that I'm trying to do. But if you choose to come with me, great. If you don't want to, that's fine as well. Hey, Dr. King, how are you there, sir?
Blessings, sir. How are you? Sorry I'm late. I was taking care of some other things. How's it going?
All things are well, and you're never late. You're always right on time, right?
Right on time.
But what I was getting at is not about people agreeing. Okay, I'll put it this way. Remember during the Million Man March, we had the Get on the Bus campaign. And I'm going to use this as a bit of an imagery here. So all of the buses were headed to DC. That was the shared objective as far as where we are going so that we can get to work. But the bus you got on was the bus that fit where you are right now. So if you were coming out of Chicago, you got on the Chicago bus. And if you're in Atlanta like me, then you would have got on the bus here or the bus there. And if this bus is a very religious bus and they're all focused on, like, we're fighting on a holy plane, and that doesn't jive for you, get off that bus and get on the other bus that fits you better, recognizing that the people on the bus you just got off of, they're not wrong. They just have a different way of getting at where you're all trying to go. So I think it's super important as we engage in this type of, I call it this type of work, because I say that this is an eternal struggle and we all play our roles. We're like actors. So I'm trying to play my role. You're playing your role. I can't read your lines for you. Right? But if we do this right, we can have a good production and we can start to deliver things for our people. So for me, politics has slid down to like number 3 or 4 on my list because I feel the game is too far gone in certain respects on the national level. I'm very, very different when it comes to local, because I'm like, if you want criminal justice reform, you can vote for who your sheriff is. You get to vote for that. You get to vote for your judges. These are the people that can affect your life right now. So if you want criminal justice reform, don't wait on Congress. Change it where you're at. And the way to do that, we have to engage with our young people. We have to engage with our middle tier people. We have to deal with our elders. And we have to show them, how do we get the small wins so that we can affect outcomes? And so long as we're always stuck looking at the guy at the top, our needs go unmet and we start blaming the wrong thing. We're blaming America for failing us, but we are also playing our own role in failing ourselves. So educate our children, take over their education. Stop letting the people who hate you teach your children. Start building your businesses. Start receiving feedback and get education and training and running your business. These are things that I think are super important. I'm sorry I ran long. Whatever y'all like to say from there.
Well, I want to jump in. I think the politics side is not gone. James Madison said it this way: knowledge will always govern ignorance. And so if we keep our community ignorant, and just like you was talking about the local, right? We are ignorant to local politics. We blame federal positions what's happening locally. And our local politicians know we're ignorant, so they also blame the president for the potholes. They also
Yeah,
blame
yeah,
the president for your property taxes. They also, so they know we don't know. And so I don't think politics is too far gone. I think we should have our own civic classes to teach our people, not based on a party though, because that's where
yes.
we mess up at.
Mhm.
We want to bring people in based on parties, like the party going to rescue our community, and we see that neither party has our community heart and their interests. So what we have to do is we got to go back and have neighborhood classes on, you, like you say, vote for the sheriff. You sick of the way the DA treating us? Vote for a new DA. You know, judges, vote for judges. And here's the thing that a lot of people don't know. You don't have to be a lawyer to run for a judge. It's elected office. You don't have to be in law enforcement to run for sheriff. The best thing can help you is you know the Constitution. But you don't have to be in law enforcement to run for sheriff. It's an elected official. And so when we understand that, right, then we start to empower. And when we start to empower, we can start changing some things in our community. There's a book out. It's called The Iron Triangle. And the Iron Triangle is very interesting because it shows how our community is messed up. Okay. And it talks about uh, the black pastors, the black politician, and um, the black civic groups that's supposed to, or organizations that's supposed to be help empowering the black community, but they're not. They're just using the black community for their self gain. And so if we start educating, then the thing about it is they can't play us no more.
Yeah. Now, Dr. King, I'm going to interrupt you just real quick here, sir. Um, please introduce yourself to the people out there.
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Dr. David D. King, and I'm also a candidate for governor in the state of Wisconsin as an independent write-in. I've been pastoring since '98. I run an organization called Wisconsin God Squad. Um, Me and my wife, we have a PMA, private ministry organization called Kingdom Ecclesia Ministries. And so we've been out in the community, both of us together, over 60 years. So I got 30 and she got 30 plus. So we understand the community. My wife had a school, uh, transitional home for men and single moms. So so we know the heartbeat of our community, and we have seen a lot of things happen in the black community due to ignorance.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Michael, did you have anything you wanted to say, sir?
No, I just I'm 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 sitting here. This is the second person from Wisconsin I've talked to today, and second person to tell me about Deacons for Defense. So I think I'm getting the message.
Yeah, you're receiving
Um,
some confirmation out there.
yeah. So
Flashing.
again, I'm just honored to be with you, brothers. And as you said, thing is, we don't have to agree on everything, and we might be on different buses, but we're all traveling to the same location and to help each other out. So that's why I'm glad to be on here. And I think to also answer the question Tracy had, building political power, I think forums like this help. And so I want to say I appreciate Tracy for putting this on. Because now I've met two other brothers I didn't know before, and it's a blessing to me.
Definitely echo
What?
that sentiment. Thank you, Tracy Carson, for putting this all together. Please, if you are watching, make sure you like. Thank you for all the comments. If you're seeing this on the replay, still give us comments. We do monitor them. We will be able to respond to you as best as possible. Hey, Dr. King, got a question for you, sir.
Yes.
Tracy, you went a little bit too fast for me. One second. Dr. King, do you advocate for American Freedmen Cooperative Enterprises? I'm not familiar with the full phrase, but maybe you are. If you want to repeat
American.
it,
Yeah, say it again.
do you advocate for American Freedmen Cooperative Enterprises?
I'm trying to figure out because I see the question, but I also see a non-American freedmen. So I'm gonna ask you to educate me on who that is. What group is that? A group?
I don't think it's particularly a group per se. It's along the lines of the freedmen, so like foundational Black Americans, basically advocating for reparations and rights and remediation for freedmen. So,
Okay.
and if I'm misrepresenting that, brother, please let me know. But I think he's saying American freedmen is a lineage. So I'm gonna try to pull some of his questions together a bit here because he got a couple of them. So as what I said before, do you advocate for American Freedmen Cooperative Enterprises? Follow up. What is your email contact information so that voters can follow up with you regarding specific policies for American freedmen and non-American freedmen voters? Thank you.
Okay. First of all, my email is wisgodsquad@gmail.com. Now, I had a question about reparation, excuse me, couple of days ago, and I had to ask them a question too. So if we're going to do that, then one of the things we got to ask ourselves is who's going to pay it. And the reason I say that is because blacks had slaves too. So who pays it?
Well, if I could, I would like to speak to that just a bit. Now, my viewpoint is most likely a little different from the questioner, but I'm also very invested in reparations. My viewpoint is different than many. I'll put it that way. So, who would pay it? America, because America benefited from the institution, regardless of where you were in it. Right. So when you say there were black people who owned slaves, that's actually a layered thing, because one, the black slave owner was not always equivalent to what a white slave owner was. There were many documented cases where the black slave owners were purchasing slaves so that they could remove them from white slave masters. So it was not the same. Well, bear with me. So that's what I'm saying. That part is layered. But to me, that'll get us too far into the weeds. When the question is who would pay it, I say America, because America as an institution, as a nation, is who benefited from the institution. So in a way, we're all paying for it because we're all paying taxes, right? So
Right. I'm sorry because I'm in my car. But my thing is, I'm in agreement with you on the American pay it. But one of the things I want to know is how will they pay it? Will they do us like they did the Indians? Um,
Japanese.
yeah, and the Japanese. So my thing is, how would they do it for us? You know, just giving
Yeah.
us one lump
Yeah.
sum, but and no land, or you see what I'm saying?
No,
So
I do.
what would it? I'm thinking, what would it look like? You know what I mean?
Okay.
So I'll give you my plan.
Brothers, may I just interject? Because I
Yeah.
made a commitment for an hour and a half, and then we're getting to a conversation about reparations, which I would love to have, just not at this time. But if you guys want to continue, I appreciate your time and effort. And I mean, I do have reparations on my platform. If you go to DublinForSenate.com, you'll see reparations for lineage-based reparations for descendants of freedmen. So it's there, DublinForSenate.com. But I thank you for this time to talk about the state of the black male voter. But I'm going to go ahead and get off and let you guys continue the conversation about reparations.
Hey, Michael, it was an absolute pleasure. I'm glad we got a chance to spend some
Hi,
time
my
talking.
name is Irma,
Hopefully, it
and I'm
won't
a
be the last time.
contractor team
I
and
hope it's
agent
not the last time as well.
Yes, it is.
Okay, my
Hi.
brothers and sisters, good
All
night.
right, thank you.
Blessing, sir.
So
Now, I definitely would agree. I would love for us to get back together at some point and really have a more fulsome discussion on a couple other topics, of which reparations can be one, because I think that it's a very heavy subject, and I don't think that a short discussion will do it justice, of course. But I'll give you mine, which I'm telling you is not going to be like most people. I'm going to tell you that. So I think that I would defer how the reparations roll out or whatever would be. I would defer that to the people who actually study it and live it, right? So like Dr. Sandy Darity and people like that, right? That's where I would
I'm thinking
that energy.
yeah, watch it free.
But from me, I would say that our story, whether you call yourself descendants of like African descendants of, I'm sorry, descendants of, you know what I mean, okay?
Yeah.
Right? You can call yourself a freedman. You can call yourself a descendant of slavery. You can call yourself a descendant of enslaved Africans in America. Like to me, it comes down to it's not just the slavery, okay? The slavery might have been the entry point for most of us, but it's not for all of us. But the Black experience has been one of subjugation, isolation, and violence for the whole run. Okay. So that's why I find it really troublesome how some people draw the line, because I think it's too early to worry about drawing the line. First, let's focus on getting the process, right? But reparations to me would not just be cutting a check, because what America has done to my community runs deeper than any cash deposit you can drop in my account.
No,
especially when we do not have the ownership of the means of production. We do not have ownership of the resources in the land. And unless you want to play colonizer and steal the land from somebody else, we got to be a little bit more creative in my eyes. So I think that it's both. There is a cash component, right? But the bigger thing is, what am I trying to ameliorate? What am I trying to get justice for? I'm trying to get justice for the 300-year head start on the backs of my forefathers that this country was able to get. And to do that, that's where I need, and this is just top of the dome, some things. We need to make sure we're fully funded on our HBCUs. Don't absorb us into the rest of the university system. There's a reason why we have HBCUs. So We need to have that fully funded, just like you make sure that these Ivy League schools stay deep with their money. All right. We also need to have for freedmen, descendant of slavery, however you want to use your terminology, there needs to be lending, small business lending programs that are dedicated to us. So it doesn't get rewrapped and reworded. So now it's just white women and Latinos running off with the business loans, right? We also need to redo this thing called what is it called? The Electoral College. That needs to go away as a part of any reparations plan that's out there. Because so long as you have something that's giving outsized weight to underpopulated white dominated spaces, that's a problem. That's a legacy of slavery. So I say that many people won't agree with me because I think a lot of people are only focused on the money. And I'm saying that, just to be real clear with y'all, cash me out. Let me tell you what happens. I'm just making up a number. You say that we're going to run the numbers and it's $2.5 million for each adult black person and 1.5 for every child. So I don't know, let's say that's about $10 million for my family. You know what I'm doing? I'm out this country tomorrow. Okay. So I'm the one that's going to leave. I'm done fighting for this rock. So my solution ain't going to be like everybody else's. So what I want to make sure of is that for those of you cash out and we dip, I still want my people who are still here to make sure they get their education, they get their housing, they get their representation, they get all of the things that are due to them that this country has been denied.
You know, I had to laugh because you said we out.
I'm done.
And you know what? And I get it. And you know, me, I think like Martin Luther King said toward the end, he realized he made a mistake, and he says, "I believe I led our people into a burning house." Um, I would take that. Me personally, I would take that money and rebuild our community because the biggest problem that we have is I would not, me personally, would not trust a black organization to speak for me to get the money because they gonna keep majority of it. You see what I'm saying? Because we have seen it over and over. Yeah, I'm upset with how our community has been treated, but we also got to be honest. It got like that because we trusted a black face.
No, I disagree there.
Yes. And I'll tell you about it and I use my city, okay? My city, we have a black mayor. All right? But our community is in the worst condition ever.
He's focused on the
Okay? We got food deserts.
Yes.
We have pharmacies like Walgreens left our communities.
grocery
Yeah.
store.
You know, so if you there because of if you there and you tell us to vote for you because you got us in our city service in our community is terrible. And what I mean by that is when it snows on the side of our city, they get their snow plowed and their garbage picked up. On the north side, it's going to take a while to get the streets
Right.
plowed and the garbage picked up. Same city, different types of service.
Yes.
And majority of our leadership in our local elections in the city of Milwaukee are black.
Yeah. I
So I'm not saying all, I'm speaking out of experience.
feel
Here,
you.
And
There's a
and
little bit of
so,
delay, so I don't mean to speak over you, sir.
oh no, I'm sorry. But I'm just saying, for my community, I fought for my community for 30 years. I was helping them get jobs and transporting them to work when the city, our black city official was hollering there was no job. but we need more money. So I watched them how they mismanaged the money, allowed our education to suck in our community. So I seen it, but then they say vote for me because I'm black, and I got you. If that's what having me looks like, I don't want it.
Right.
Yeah.
You
So if I
know,
may,
go ahead.
yeah. So if I may, I think that you're tying a couple things together because you have benign neglect in part of what you said, right? You have what I would call weaponized racism or structural racial disadvantage in there, right? Um, I can't blame, beyond blaming the individual for their own inadequacies, right? I can't blame black folks for being the tool of white structures. So you can put a black face in the mayor, you can put a black face in the governor. And on the surface, that means that they have power because they do have some power. We've seen it, but they don't have all the power because there's people who control them. There's people who make sure things happen the way they want it to, and we've seen it happen. So I'm saying that yes, we have those issues, but a black city that is not doing what it's supposed to do is not just because of black folks. It is
No,
because of the structure of this nation that has decided that our value is not to be on par with others, so that we ourselves in those positions begin to be white people with black appearances. So we make sure the white side of town is taken care of, even though we ain't taken care of. So just because you're black, you ain't getting my vote. That's
no,
not how I move, right?
right.
But
I forgot we got
no,
this
go ahead.
delayed. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. But and I agree with you. But here's the thing though. As a black man, before you touch that white money, you have a choice. If you're really sincere trying to do something for your community, and because you're not just the mayor of the black community, you're mayor of the whole city, you got to make sure the service is fair for everybody.
You should.
But but if you got paid, like you say, to be master's face, then you already sold us out.
True.
And
True.
so and so when we look at black voting, we, just like the Bible says, you got to know them by the fruit they bear.
Yes.
You got to know. You can't just do it because, and I always tell people, do not vote for me because of the color of my skin, but vote for me for the work I've done.
To get there, right? And I get, unfortunately, here's the first thing I'll say. Everybody
That's
doesn't
what I
operate
think.
on the same wavelength, right? So I view things in a way that I would safely say most people don't. I consider angles that most people don't. But that doesn't mean that they shouldn't get the same benefit that I would know how to demand. So when we look at a lot of these black faces in high places, these are not generally your typical black person. Okay. A lot of them are of the mentality of I'm different, right? Or they're of the I want to outrun my race variety. So to feed off of what you were saying, the way that we counteract some of that, you won't get out of it all the way because there's a particular personality type that usually runs for office. But you got to look at what were they doing before they decide they want to run for something. What were they doing in the off season? Don't just wait for the 3 months that they showing up in your church or they're showing up on your TV doing a commercial, right? Like you said, let the fruit bear out. What is this? But that requires people like you, people like me, to make sure we're more vocal, make sure that we're more patient in helping to elevate the consciousness of our community so that they could be more discerning of what they're voting for. Right now, we vote blind because we don't understand. You know, we're busy managing our own bubbles of chaos, if you will. So I just, for me, it just strikes me wrong to blame what's sitting in front of me when I know the power is sitting behind it, if you follow what I'm saying.
Oh yeah, I get it.
Blame both.
I get it. And I'm with you on that. But I'm not going to excuse us.
Oh,
And
no,
when I
no, no,
say
no.
us, I'm talking about our community. I'm not going to excuse us for our laziness either, because we should be educated voters. We should not be voting because somebody told us to vote Democrat or somebody told us to vote Republican. We should not be voting for somebody just because of the color of their skin. And like you said, and I said earlier, if they ain't never done nothing, why would I give you my vote when your agenda is not lining up with my agenda? And my
Agreed.
agenda is my family. You see what I'm saying? And I think that before you take your money and leave the country, you got to help me educate folks on how to really vote, because they really don't know. And I'm finding out on a daily basis they don't know. They listen to somebody running for Congress talking about school choice and how much they're going to do for your classroom, and they have no authority over school choice. They should be talking about homeland security and all of that stuff, but they're talking about local things, and they're not even running for a local office. But because people are ignorant, they're voting for them, thinking that they are really for them. And I think the black vote would be even more dangerous with the information, with the knowledge on how to do it, how to check their voting record to see if they really if they're really for them. But if you ask about voting record, they don't know. You know?
True.
So so I think that in order to make the black vote, because you remember now, LDL, Lyndon
I'm
Johnson
sorry.
knew how powerful the black vote was.
I'm not getting you. Can you say that
Huh?
again? We lost the connection there.
Oh, I said Lyndon Johnson understood the power of the black vote. That he made a statement. He said these Negroes are getting uppity because they have something now they never had before. So what we have to do now, we have to give them something, but not enough to make a difference. And we'll have them Negroes
Say Negro.
voting Democrat for the next 200 years. And so he understood, I'm gonna give you something, but it ain't gonna make a difference to make you think I'm for you.
So,
So, huh?
oh, I was just going to say a couple things with that. So, um, I know you came in a little later in the thing, but that was earlier on. I was talking about how we changed some of how we approach things, because I actually believe that the way we engage with voting is not the best way to do it. I believe that we should have voting blocks. I believe that we should restructure at the community level. I think that education is critically important, because, as Fred Hampton also admonished, what good is it for me to take the white man's foot out the boot just to put the black man's foot in it? Right? It's still on my neck.
Right.
So we have to
That's right.
educate, we have to elevate the consciousness of our community. I am 100% on those things. Um, where I shift a little bit from perhaps some others is that when I say I think we're too late in the game, is not that I'm saying don't participate in the voting system. I'm not saying that. I think that's literally the least you can do. The easiest thing in the world to do is go throw a vote out there. But the next thing is you need to have an informed vote. That's really helpful. At least know who you're voting for as best as you can. And they're playing games and make it hard for you to do it. I'm here in Georgia. For this past election, they stripped all party affiliations off of the people running so that you don't know who you're voting for. Because, like you said, they know most people are not educated in the vote, right? So it's incumbent upon us to increase that educational value. But here's where I
But
differ.
wait. that again. Parking lot, baby. They took all people wouldn't know if they
we can't hear you right now.
okay. I said, did you say they took it off so you don't know if you vote for a Democrat or Republican?
Yeah, here in Georgia, this no longer listed on the ballot if it's a Democrat or a Republican. And they did that expressly because the Republican brand is so bad that they want to make people kind of. Here's a really good illustration of it. The guy up in Michigan who just lost because he has a Muslim sounding name. That's what they want. It worked against them that time, but that's what they want. They want you to read a name and be like, Tom Smith, I like that more. I'll vote for that, right? Because they know what the double-blind studies show. They know how people move. But I do want to say one thing, because this is one of the commenters puts a very important point. This is why I keep kind of pushing back a little bit with some of what you're sharing. He said that puts a dunce cap on a whole community without questioning the voter education they've been given. I agree with that, right? The thing is, we can't just blame people for not making better decisions when they're not being properly equipped to make better decisions, right? If you've never seen what it is to have a good father, you might stumble into being a good father, but it's much easier if you had a good father to model yourself off of. If you want to start a business, you may stumble into being a successful business person, but it's a lot easier if you've had mentors or someone who's done it before that'll show you how to do it. So I think that to get to where you and I both want us to be, we have to come at it in multiple ways. I think first one is we have to take advantage of what we do have control of. I believe in uncentering whiteness. I don't focus on white folks except for to point out the contrast. That's what I do. That's me. So I look at it and say, okay, we have a school system that all our children are basically funneled through. How do we help interrupt the bad education that they're getting? I think the best way to do that is we start Saturday schools or Sunday schools, and we start to educate our children and supplement their information, their education. Now you're starting to have a better informed population coming up. Don't trust the school system to do what we should be doing for ourselves. And then as we do that, then our voting people will move a little different. But I also, just to say it, I don't know if the Dr. King will be able to come back on, but also just to put a button on it, it's also important for me to express that your vote is one tool in your entire toolkit. Your vote is just one way to approach this thing. You also must get a handle on economics. You must get a handle on education. You must get a handle on civic engagement. You must get a handle on interpersonal relationships. Once the Black man and the Black woman can see that we're still in the same struggle, and we find a way to say, you know what, for anything that came before us to what's happening right now, brother, I forgive you. Sister, I forgive you. For as a group, I forgive you. Please forgive me. Let's build something going forward. We have to do that. We have to decide that our children's education is more important than what they decide to put in a curriculum. Because look at what they're doing. I saw one school system is toying with the idea of making it a 20-point scoring system. Instead of 90 to 100, 80 to 100 becomes an A. That cripples these children. That's saying that these children aren't learning and we can't teach them. You're giving up an entire generation. And guess who they give up on first? Ours. So I just think that that's how we have to come at it. And my energy is on the other things, and politics is falling further back because it's much easier to teach your child how to do multiplication and how to run a business than it is to get them to understand local politics, unfortunately.
I can't hear.
You can't hear me? Well, I'll tell you what, though. Tracy, hey, Tracy, if you would, can you see about maybe getting Dr. King and Michael on another session here in the future so we can chop it up on some other topics. This one is, we're running at that 2 hour mark. So I'd like to go ahead and bring it to a close, if that's okay. Does that work for you, Tracy?
Hi, everybody. Hi, everybody. Yes, I can do that. I can connect you all together. We're at that 2 hour mark there. So I was like, okay, yeah, wrap it up. Yeah, wrap it up. Yeah, wrap it up. But yes, if Michael and Dr. King agree, I'll just hook you up, all three of you up on email, and then you tell me when you want me to do it. That's just how it works. I'll let you all lead it, and I won't be the bossy lady that tells you all what to do like I did this time.
So sounds good. Tracy, are you frozen or you just stopped talking?
No, I just stopped talking because I thought Dr. King was going to say something.
All right. But yeah, I would like to, if Dr. King, his audio is back, give him the final word. I'm done talking. If y'all want to see more of me, Complex Mind, Simple Man on YouTube, I don't put out a lot of content, but I do put out some stuff. And thank you so much for letting me participate on this panel. And that's it for me.
Okay, I think Dr. King is having some issues there. So once I see his face again, I'll put him back up. So on behalf of this channel, first thing I want to hit subscribe to this channel. I don't want to pat myself on the back, but I'm about to pat myself on the back. There's not a channel that's doing this type of discussion where we don't get political pundits. We don't get, oh, well, this is the expert. I know Michael's running for office and Dr. King is running for office. We get actual boots on the ground people to come in and talk about issues. You're not going to find that anywhere else. So I implore you to hit that, smash that, obliterate that, destroy that subscribe button. Destroy it. I need to hit 500. And why is 500 so important? Because once I hit 500, I can get super chats. And once I get super chats, I can improve my equipment. This is very vitally important. I don't just say things just because I want to say them. But I definitely thank Theus. I definitely thank Dr. King. I definitely thank Michael. I learned so much, and I'm so glad. I'm so glad that I did not listen to my instinct, because many of you know I go. I've always done this with females, and I've always, of course, been a part of the discussion because I am female. But I said, you know what? Um, hold on, we got another comment coming in. Yes, you did miss it, but you can watch it on replay. We didn't get to all the issues because in um they're so encumbersome and we just couldn't get to them, but we will. I wanted to do this forum because as a Black female, I'm so tired of the media pitting Black females against Black males. It's not necessary. I 100% agree with you, Theus. We need to come together and stop this media miseducation that is purposeful, that's intentional. We have more in common than we do not have in common. And it's going to be up to us to take care of us because we know how our government works. We know our government has never had our best interests in mind. Non-Black people, you know what? I feel like saying "suck it up, Buttercup," but that's going to Marlon, and I don't want to do that. If Marlon was on this panel, he would say "suck it up, Buttercup." I guarantee. But I want to give. I think they said it again. We ignore Black men, and it really irks my nerves, especially when you look at the Democratic Party, especially when you look how they elevate Black women, and then just somehow, okay, and not just the Democrats. Well, Republicans elevate men, white men. Um, Even some of our third parties do it. They elevate women because women have been victims of uh, sexism, uh, homophobia in some cases. So the response is, oh, let's elevate them. This is an all hands on deck situation. This is an all hands on deck situation. It's time for us to get in where we fit in. I'm so happy that everybody joined in today. I hope anybody that's listening will share this on your. I know that these doesn't have Facebook, but if you got Instagram, Twitter, Threads, Blue Sky, um, it doesn't matter. I wasn't even gonna appear on camera. I thought, okay, I'll just go, but it's my channel, so I might as well. Um, I will connect with the three of you by email. So just check your emails out and go from there. This you may drop because I got one more announcement.
All right. Well, good night, everybody, or good day to y'all be sitting on the replay. Again, really enjoyed it, Tracy. Y'all take care.
So tomorrow, see, y'all don't even see my backdrop. I took everything down. I was not planning on being on camera today. Tomorrow, the Sunday show comes on at 7 o'clock p.m. No, it does not. I'm sorry. Tomorrow, we will have an interview with, I'm going to get her name. I'm going to get her name right. Her name is Shalia Fazi. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. She will be our guest tomorrow for a special The Tracy Show, the Sunday edition. Got another interview coming up, then one Thursday, then one Saturday, then one Sunday. So we're keeping busy. Thank you all. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you 25 million times. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so very, very, very much. Share this video, comment on it tomorrow, send it out to your friends, put it on your Facebook page. Um, and we'll see you when we see you. Have a great evening. Bye bye.